Justin asks, how do you balance studying with a full-time job? So this question comes up a lot, and typically when people are asking, they're either having trouble establishing the habit in the first place or they're having trouble maintaining it. So I think what Justin really wants to know is how can I study consistently for longer? And when I've had these discussions in person and ask, so what's your plan? It's always something really big, like 2 to 4 hours a day. And it's like this because when you're making the plan, it feels so good to think about the most you could do. And on a normal 8-hour workday, 2 to 4 hours is about that. But here's the problem. When you say, I'm going to commit to 2 hours a day or even more, very soon something that's completely out of your control is going to stop you from doing that. And when that happens, you're going to make a mental note that you can never unsee. And it's going to say that this commitment you have, it's not real and it's not even possible. It's like a wish. And this means that you're now going to be negotiating with yourself about what you're going to do each day when there should be no negotiation at all when you're trying to build a habit. And when you get to this point, it's basically over. Now, to avoid this, the real question you should ask is what's an amount I'm sure I can do every single day, even on the busiest, worst day? And people resist thinking this way because it's just not as fun, so they don't want to do it. But you have to, because if you want to develop a habit from a cold start, you have to get through the worst days without quitting. So here's a better plan that keeps all of this in mind. Do at least 20 minutes a day and don't miss consecutive days. And this works so much better because it prioritizes survival of the habit. Without that baseline habit, you don't have anything. So the 20 minutes is meant to be very doable, even on the busiest days. And this is so that you can't make any excuses and you can actually hold yourself to it. The system also gives you the flexibility to take breaks when you need them, but enough structure so that the breaks don't get too long. So if you need an easy day, just do 20 minutes. If you need the day off, that's okay too. Just make sure that you don't miss consecutive days. And then the last key thing is that it's built around the idea of the smallest significant chunk of time. So 20 minutes is just enough that you can make progress on pretty hard problems. And this is important because if you go down too low, say down to 5 minutes, you can't get anything done. And then if you go too high, things start getting unmanageable. So I found that 20 minutes is the sweet spot. Every single time, there's always someone that says, look, Gordon, I really like the idea of doing 2, 3, 4 hours a day. They say this very seriously. And this is too easy for me. It's not ambitious enough. So eventually I realized that people get like a little high from just writing down their goal, their big audacious goal, and they don't want to lose that feeling. So if that's you, that's okay too. Just frame each day with the same goal that we've talked about, at least 20 minutes a day. And then you can add a stretch goal that can be whatever you want. And this still works because the main goal is still the focus. And now that the stretch goal is explicitly optional, you don't have to worry when you don't get there. So this is a subtle but really important difference. When you actually try the system, it's really common to do a lot more than you expect. And this makes sense because getting started is often the hardest part. Once you start, it's easy to get sucked into what you're doing. And so the system surprises people in a good way. So what does this look like in practice? Well, I have a lot of data from working with my students over the last 10 years, and here's what the successful ones do. So on weekdays, a realistic stretch goal is about an hour. So they do their 20 minutes and then go up to an hour if they have time or if they're feeling good about it. And it's really rare to do more than that for a sustained period. I actually can't think of any real examples of that happening. It happens for maybe a few months at a time, but not for a sustained period. And the most consistent students tend to do their studying before work starts. Later in the day, it just becomes too difficult when things come up. On weekends, same thing, except the stretch goal is typically a little bit longer, something like 90 minutes. I've seen people sustain that for quite a long time. So I wanted to give concrete numbers because I think people imagine really crazy schedules work the best, but I've actually seen the opposite. It's the slow and steady people that do a lot better. I really like Murakami's take on this from his book, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. Sometimes I run fast when I feel like it, but if I increase the pace, I shorten the amount of time I run. The point being to let the exhilaration I feel at the end of each run carry over to the next day. This is the same sort of tact I find necessary when writing a novel. I stop every day right at the point where I feel like I can write more. Do that, and the next day's work goes surprisingly smoothly. So people will often wish they could do more, that they had more time, and that can become its own source of stress if you don't manage it. And they might even start to resent their job in the extreme cases and want to quit to create more time. But Murakami is saying that that unfulfilled desire to do more is a good thing. Just let it go. That's what might keep things going. So I try to remind myself whenever I feel like I'm getting greedy and I want to do more, it's okay to leave a little bit for tomorrow.